Welcome to Town Talk. I'm your host, Rose Highland-Sharpe. This very inspirational program is brought to you by Highland Communications for storytelling, edutainment, music, and much more. Call at 910-528-0718. Today on the broadcast, you will see students on the campus of Sandhills Community College in the African American History class. Their professor, Bill Pope. The discussion led by yours truly, race relations, past and present. Where do we go from here? And this program was recorded on April 4th, 2018, commemorating the 50th commemoration of the assassination of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So I hope you get engaged in this discussion. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right, folks, here on Town Talk, of course, with Rose Highland-Sharpe on the campus of Sandhills Community College on a most momentous day, 50 years ago today, in Memphis, Tennessee, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, and here we are with these wonderful students in Mr. Pope's African American History Studies class to talk about the issues of today in 2018, and as we reflect back 50 years. Hi guys, how are you today?
Good. My name's Malik.
I'm doing pretty well. My name's Josh.
I'm doing great. My name's Maya.
I'm doing pretty good. My name's Claudette.
And I'm doing pretty good. My name's Donovan.
And I'm Donnie.
And I'm having a wonderful day. My name is Juwan.
I love that. And it is a wonderful day here in Pinehurst, North Carolina. Students, now we're going to reflect on some of the questions that I gave your professor, and we'll begin with the issue race relations in America, past and present, relative to, number one, law enforcement and community relations. Who'd like to give their thoughts on that first?
Well, my thoughts about it is it's a big issue today, actually. Back in 2015, 26% out of 277 people were African American young males. And it increased every year. In 2016, it increased to 31%. And today, it's at 42% of the people is young African American males are getting killed by cops. I think it's a dominance thing for cops. They think they need to show power. But I don't feel like every single cop is the same with racial or prejudice profiling. But I feel as though the law enforcement today, it needs like a little bit more help with the agency, law enforcement agency, and I think that it needs maybe somebody to turn it around. That's just my thoughts on it. The community really believe that they're just targeting young black males. They just feel as though it's basically going back 50 years ago, as in Dr. Martin Luther King being assassinated, as in racism is still alive. And they just keep attacking young males. I wake up every morning, you know, get in the car with fear of getting pulled over because I don't know if I'm gonna live or die. I can obey the law, but you don't know what's gonna happen. They can think I'm getting a gun just by getting my license or registration. It doesn't even matter nowadays. You gotta explain everything, know your rights, and it's really hard today as African American males. And that's just my personal feelings about it.
Juwan, do you think that the cops are almost like intimidated by what to expect from somebody?
I think they are intimidated about like certain things we wear. Like say if you got a hoodie on, they have more fear to draw their gun out quicker than a person that like myself, got a nice little suit on or nice shirt. But they are intimidated by certain young males, African American males. Like loud music playing, the fancier the car, it draws attention and draws them to be aware of what they might get into. That's just
mine. Just to piggyback on what Juwan was saying, I think that one thing that has become a problem is cops going in with a pre-existing thought in their head, thinking that, well, this guy, he's got dreads, so last guy I dealt with that address ended up giving me a problem, so maybe I'm going to have to pull out my gun a lot quicker this time to get a shot off. So I feel like eliminating the pre-existing thoughts in your head will definitely increase the trust between a black man and a cop in this country, because I mean, you're seeing like the thing that happened in California. I don't know how long ago it was. A man was chilling in his own backyard and he got killed for no apparent reason because he had a phone in his hand. So I mean, it's crazy to think that just because you're a young black man that you have to fear for your life every time you get in a car, every time you get pulled over.
And Juwan, you were saying that depending on the certain kind of car you drive and stuff like that, do you feel as if law enforcement or police officers, they stereotype you based off of just your opinion? I mean, well, they obviously, and most people do, but like you said, just kind of like on the car you drive, if you're, let's say a police officer pulled you over and you're driving a Ferrari and you have on a hoodie and stuff like that, do you feel like before they come to the car and see what you look like and handle the situation, they already have a stereotype in their mind as if like what's going to happen, how you're going to handle the situation?
I think sort of. I mean, not 100% sure of that, but if I can see from behind, you know, I don't know if you got if the car is tinted or not, but if they got a mindset of, certain cops have a mindset of stereotyping or prejudice feelings of how they're going to handle the situation, where they will approach aggressively and disrespect you, and they will attack you physically and mentally mostly, and they'll see, you know, they'll test you basically to see if you know you're right, you know, because they will press your buttons and try to take your rights from you. You know what I'm saying? So you just got to be aware and careful of what's going to happen.
Yeah, I understand that one. I feel like stereotypes cause more to a situation than just honestly knowing somebody for the person they are. Me personally, though, I have a best friend named Will Scott, and he's from the Caucasian race, and he was the first person I met when I moved here in 2005. We talk the same, we act the same, we dress the same. People really say that we're brothers just with different skin tone or whatever. But throughout high school or throughout middle school, people always just be like, oh, you talk white, or oh, you dress white. I never really understood how you dressed white or how you talked white. I mean, I talked how I was taught, the appropriate grammar or whatnot. But like going through middle school and high school, I always thought about that, like how do I talk white or how do I dress white or whatever. And that was just people putting stereotypes together, like, oh, okay, well, you're black and you hang around a bunch of black people that sag their pants, all right, they automatically think you're a thug. Or you're driving a nice car and you're wearing a lot of hooded clothes with holes in them and things like that, okay, you're probably a drug dealer. Like, it seems as if there's a lot of stereotypes out there that don't allow black people to have the success that they earned. You have to walk around with basically a suit on just for somebody to think, okay, maybe he's a hardworking African American, just maybe. Or there's other stereotypes that go along with that. So I feel like stereotypes are also a big issue with law enforcement and things like that, that if people would just open their minds and scratch out all the things that they've heard about African Americans or even your background, anybody's background, I think a lot of things would just go smoother and things of that nature.
I feel like this is also pretty prominent in high school, where most people don't understand that stereotypes are like what everyone views each other as. So in high school, everyone's like, oh, they're basing everyone off stereotypes. They don't think about it like, hey, you know, it's just another human being, you know. I don't have to think about, oh, he's wearing a hood, you know, he's probably going to rob me or something like that. It doesn't go along with that because they're basing everything off of these stereotypes. Yeah. And I feel like once we get moved more into college, more people see that, more people understand these stereotypes, and they can see through this and they can have a better understanding of like, hey, they're just like me, you know, it doesn't really matter. I can't base them off, you know, the car they drive or what they wear.
All right. Everybody feel like you've emptied yourself of those concerns. And it's so wide, you know, we could write volumes about this and what we're going through. And particularly, let's say here in the Sandhills of North Carolina, Moore County, Southern Pines, Pinehurst, Aberdeen, Carthage, Robbins. Is it any worse here than anywhere else in North Carolina, or the United States, or the South, or about the same?
Me personally, you know, I've grown up in this, I'm from Robbins, North Carolina, so I've grown up in this community. So when I see law enforcement, most of the time I've seen them 10 times, or at least they're related to me. I have family that's in the law enforcement agency or whatever. So, I mean, for me personally, it hasn't been that big of a problem. I mean, every time I've been pulled over for not doing anything, I still feel like I have to you know, call my mom because I don't know if this is going to be the last time I'm talking to her or whatever, but I feel like in certain places you would definitely see it being more of a problem, but in Moore County, we still feel as black men that we're being targeted on the road when we're driving, doing nothing. So, yeah, it's still a problem.
Wow. Let's move on to our next question, and it is global perspective and community relations and reactions. So we're going far beyond Robbins, North Carolina, Southern Pines, far beyond the USA to the other nations. What are your thoughts today on race relations, past and present, relative to the global perspective and the community? That's a deep subject.
It's very deep.
And we do know, to give you some food for thought, with our current president, President Trump, you know, and those in his cabinet and those who, of course, are going to various places. We can look at North Korea, China. There's a lot about that. South Korea. What's happening in the Middle East still, and other nations. And, of course, our allies, of course, Great Britain and so forth and so on. Those in our military, and our business community, because business, you know, they're talking about the trades. Well, you know, we're putting on these, you know, tariffs and things. You know, China's doing it to us now, we're doing it to them. So this is about business, it's trades, it's money. It's not just race, but it's money. You know what color is that almighty dollar? Green. It's not brown, it's not black, it's not red. So from that perspective, could you give me some of your thoughts?
I don't know if you guys are aware, but yesterday, April 3rd, was Beat a Muslim Day. And there were very many Muslim girls and guys who did not go to school that day because they were afraid of being beaten by their classmates because of, you know, their race, their nationality, where they come from. And I think us as Americans have a hard time accepting the Muslim culture because of what happened on 9/11. And I've personally never had any issues with the Muslim people. I've gone out of the country, I've met them, they've been nothing but kind, and it just breaks my heart knowing that we have days to celebrate beating another person, and it just breaks my heart.
Like you were talking about 9/11, one thing I can think about is ever since 9/11, it seems like in this country every time that a situation happens or something bad happens with a Muslim, they're considered a terrorist. I've been in public plenty of times where I've seen a Muslim walk around minding their business, and you know how the women wear certain ropes or things around their heads, and you have these people giving them mean looks when they're not doing anything wrong. But when a white man or something commits a crazy crime, like the guy that was bombing, had the bombs and nails or whatever in Texas, nobody wouldn't consider him a terrorist because of what he was. But when it comes to people being Muslim or Islamic descent, they're so quick to prejudge and say that they're terrorists. So.
I know that in Europe, the smallest act against a police officer, that's considered a terrorist attack. In America, we don't consider that a terrorist attack. And as soon as the person is white, it's not even labeled as terrorism, but as the person's of a different race, a different culture, they're labeled a terrorist. And I believe that that should not be okay.
Do you think because in Europe there's like a different view? They haven't really had any like, you know, terrorist attacks, you know, 9/11. Nothing like that's really happened. Do you think the views are different there than like from what we've had in America?
I can imagine to an extent, yes, but they have had actual terrorist attacks. You know, they've had, in London, was it? And they had the club shot up. And, like, they've experienced similar terror, but I just think they have higher standards. You know, higher standards.
So yet and still, this issue of terrorism and who's considered a terrorist versus who is not, and what's considered to be a terrorist act and what's not considered to be a terrorist act, and about putting up a wall. Let's come on that issue. is we're looking at the global situation, but those who are coming into this melting pot of a country which has been like that for many generations, you know, everybody pretty much here is really not from here. All right, and we know we have our American Indians or Native Americans, whatever the correct, politically correct to say. And all of us can say we have some Native American in us, we've got some British in us, Scottish. We are a mixed melting pot. We're not just one ethnic group, although we, of course, claim if we, you know, we're black, with people of color or whatnot, we'll say that. But what about the people who still want to come here, and how we look at certain people, whether they might be Muslim, Islamic, or whatnot? What do we need to do moving forward in this nation, globally, for that? Anybody?
I just feel like just giving everybody a free opportunity, not looking at anybody because of somebody or something that somebody else did in their culture, stuff like that. Everybody's different, regardless of the way that you're raised. Everyone has their own personality and whatnot. So I feel like if we stop looking at everybody by their culture and just as an individual, things would be much more simpler. A lot of connections will be able to be made.
I feel like also trying to eliminate most stereotypes would definitely help with, you know, not judging people as they're coming in, you know. Having, you know, judging Muslims because if you're 9/11, supposedly they're all going to be terrorists. If we were able to, you know, eliminate some of these stereotypes, they would be more comfortable coming here and, you know, living and not be as scared to, you know, go out in public, you know, wouldn't be scared to go to school because, you know, beat a Muslim day. And I feel like just eliminating the stereotypes is one of the first steps we need to take in, you know, eliminating these race relations.
Josh, how do you think we can eliminate those stereotypes?
I don't know, informing more people about what is right and not, you know, what is false, like these stereotypes, you know, what they actually do, you know, how people actually act, you know, what they're actually about, you know. That's all I have to say.
Would we start with that preschool, the primary school, in the home, neighborhood church?
I mean, I feel like stereotypes are top behavior. I don't think nobody just wakes up and they're just like, you know what, every tall black person plays basketball. I think that like they just hear it a lot and they just come to the conclusion that, okay, well maybe this is this. That's the same way with racism as well. Racism is a top behavior. A newborn infant baby doesn't just wake up and thinks black people were slaves or whatever. That process took time. So that went from one ear to another ear to a group to a culture to people to come to that conclusion that, okay, well, we're more superior than another race and things of that nature. So I guess, I mean, you can say it can start from preschool or whatever, but I mean, there just has to be a change within yourself, and yourself can affect others. So if me hanging out with a group of white people, them thinking that I'm not, or as my friends, them thinking that I'm not weird for doing that, I feel like that's a percentage of a change. That small percentage can affect a lot. It can affect just Sand Hills, it could affect Moore County, it could affect North Carolina. But I just feel like if you can say it can change at a younger level, but it just has to change with anybody. Age doesn't really matter.
Speaking of children in school, and with all the school shootings, this has been a time that I thought that I would never see in my lifetime. But yet now, there seems to be possibly a change coming because people your age or younger, high school students, who, all these marches, who are speaking out. Who knew? I always say from the mouth of babes, as the Bible says, perfected praise, that the young people are going to lead us, younger than you all. So what is the solution with stopping the shootings, not only in schools, but let's focus on the schools. We know there's shooters in other places, but what are your thoughts on that?
I feel like we first need to find out what the main problem is. Some people say like the shooters will be like they were bullied, or this depression, or a mental illness is used with almost everything now when it comes to school shootings. So I guess first find out what the actual problem is. Why are there people in this world that feel the need to go to high schools and colleges and whatnot and kill people? What's their motive? What builds them for that? So I guess labeling the problem would be the first step, I think.
I think cutting out excuses don't say that they've had issues. Don't say they were bullied. Call them what it is. Don't cushion the situation. You know, don't make up excuses for the action that, you know, they did. And I think if we start there, like, oh, he was bullied. Okay, so what? He was bullied. Someone else was bullied and they didn't show up to school. You know, I just think that's a fallacy. You can't use that. That's it.
As far as what I was going to say, it's just mental illness, I think, is something that has to be really acknowledged and taken serious. Like the kid who shot up in Florida or whatever, he supposedly has mental problems or anything, and I think that's just something that has to be acknowledged and not left alone, because it seems like when someone is dealing with depression or anything and that people around them are just telling them, toughen up, you'll get through it, not giving them the support and attention that they need. And another thing too is just the protection that we have in school. I don't necessarily think that you need to give teachers guns or whatever, but I feel like, you know, anybody just being able to walk on campus and walk into any building that they want to is dangerous enough. You know, some parent could walk in right into the classroom and take their kid out without anybody's permission, because we don't have the correct facilities or protection that we need here on school to prevent people from just walking into any other building that they want.
How do you suppose we go about that with like universities and colleges that are so widespread and cover so much ground? How do you think we would be able to keep those safe and secure? Like putting up stations around, you know?
As far as university and stuff, that would definitely be tough because everything is so open and stuff. But one solution I think would be, I mean, every student is given an ID, making more of the building, all of the buildings, having to have the ID to get access into the building would be one way to prevent. I mean, obviously it would be very tough when, I mean, days like this when it's really nice outside, kids want to be out studying in the lawn and stuff. So I personally don't know exactly about that, but as far as IDs and having to use your ID to access buildings, I think it would help a lot as well.
All right. Anyone else on that particular topic?
Also,
Yes.
I feel as though maybe each building should have like a metal detector or something maybe to help it out, to identify, you know, who's dangerous or anything. I mean, this topic is real broad, and it's getting more out of hand lately, especially with it seems like almost every state is starting to have at least one school shooting, and it's starting to go more globally known that supposedly they're psychotic or they got mental illness or depression or any of that nature. But I feel as though it's more to it than that. It got to be, at least. I feel like sometimes you don't even know who they're targeting. And one school shooting, they said they was targeting the teacher, but the teacher got out of the way. You know, the teacher managed to escape, and they got the student that was in the way. So it's just like it's unfair to, you know, a parent to lose their child over something they have no control over. But I think the school system need to, you know, get together and maybe find a way to figure out how to stop all these school shootings. You know, this is a serious matter where, you know, you're trying to get an education, you're trying to better yourself, and you end up somebody running into you with a gun, you know, and you're trying to prevent yourself from being in that life or being in the streets or any of that situation. And then now it's coming to you at a place where you're supposed to learn and better yourself. So that's just my personal opinion about it.
Also, I think that teaching students what to do in a situation like that is also a very useful thing, because nowadays I never really teach, I never really see at my old high school, no one ever taught me, what do you do when somebody comes shoot up the school? I guess just panic, because no one ever told me, you know, go here, you know, stay out of the way, nothing like that. And I didn't really hear that at Sandhills either. I've never really been taught that. So I'm not really sure what to do in a school shooting, so I don't really know how to protect myself. And I feel like teaching students and learning how to protect yourself from one of these school shooters is another important piece.
There should be a policy here, I know.
It's called like lockdown,
Probably
something
not,
like
no.
that.
All right, talk back with your professor and your advisors about that. And I even remember, it's been a few years back, professor, we had training here. When gosh, I think that's been about 10 years ago. And what we're going to do in the building where I was mostly in, and as a recruiter, I was mostly gone from here. But I was thinking, well, what are we going to do? And we were given directions by the police department here.
First day of class.
Yes.
We do it in my class, the first day of class.
Well, maybe we need to reflect on, so we'll know. And I know things have changed in the past 10 years, what you're supposed to do. There are some common sense things, but there are some procedures to follow. Matter of fact, I see something still up in the corner by that door that has to do with that too. So nevertheless, but I'm going to try, I know as a instructor, as a parent, now as a grandparent, as an aunt, I would protect those students. I would protect people younger than me. I said, well, you know, because that's their future. That's my instinct. You know, you protect your child, you protect your little nieces and nephews or whomever, your little cousins. Your instinct, usually you might run, but I think you want to protect the person. And I know that's what I would do. Student and teacher relations, public schools, college campus. What's going on with that? Is it good?
Yeah. Yeah, it's better now. It's better than it was back then, I'm sure.
Better since 50 years ago or 20 years ago?
Yeah, better than 50 years ago for sure.
Especially 50 years ago, yes, sir.
Today, I mean, I feel more comfortable talking to a teacher than I would have probably been 50 years ago. I think more teachers today are more involved with their students and what they got going on. You know, certain teachers ask me all the time, like, "How's your kids?" I'd be like, "They're good." You know, it shocks me, you know, to see that they remember and care, you know, about things that I got going on in my life. So it's just like I think the teachers are more involved with their students this upcoming, like, this decade, should I say.
Well, you know, I'm going to tell you a little secret. Back in the day, so that would have been 50 years ago, was 1968, right? Elementary school. I do remember a very close-knit community, not only Moore County, but in the South, and teachers care. We always say, those of us who've been teachers and whatnot, and parents, we say, you know, teachers really used to care when we were coming along. But they don't seem to care, like they're, you know, they're in it. Some people say to get the money, and believe me, teachers are not paid enough. Let's put that out there.
Agreed.
On each level. And, but yet and still, and I thank you for sharing it. You are a parent?
Yes, I am.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. We really have people now who are retired, they're in their 70s and 80s and 90s in their health and strength. And when the good Lord made those teachers, I believe he just broke the mold. They really cared. And you didn't get sent to the office for everything. Things were handled in that classroom. That's not only my opinion, my other classmates and people my age would say, yeah, that's true. We're concerned that people your age will become teachers and make a difference. And make a difference about diversity and the global economy and being tolerant with others, being understanding and empathetic, not only sympathetic. Getting a job, employment. Let's touch on that for just a moment. Relative to race relations in America, past and present, employment, employers, employees, and community relations. Is it fair? Is it equitable? We're looking at, on this day, in history, 50 years ago, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. There in Memphis, Tennessee, there for those, the workers who were the trash collectors, to make a difference that they would get equitable pay and whatnot. And I remember at UNC Chapel Hill when I was a student back in the day, that the workers who were mostly African American who did the housekeeping and the cooking, and that university was built on the back of slaves. That's true. Go read it, go study it. That they were not paid fairly. And those of us who were in the black student movement during the latter part of the 70s, we were marching for those folks. So how is it today getting a job? Is it equitable for everybody and getting the right pay?
One thing that I've seen studies on is about the black women being in the same workplaces. white men and stuff and still not having the equal pay, doing the same work, even more work sometimes. So I feel like that aspect is really something that needs to be looked at for sure. And as far as a black man or any black person of race trying to get a job, you know, it seems like you have to have a better resume. You have to have all these different credentials and everything just to get a job that a white man that comes in with a regular college degree can get any day that he wants. So I feel like in certain aspects it's really unfair.
So let me ask you, young lady right there in the black and white, as a beautiful woman of color, are you working? You have a job as well, going to school and working?
Yeah, I'm a nanny.
You're a nanny. How about that? Do you like your job?
Yeah, I love kids.
Well, tell us about that, your work and what you plan to do and the opportunities for you or the lack thereof.
Well, whenever I was searching for a family for me to nanny, a lot of the Caucasian families would say, oh, yeah, you're great, but we have this like mold that we're looking for, and you don't quite meet that. And a lot of times it seemed like it was a race thing, and I would just kind of brush it. But it did affect like me getting certain jobs and the amount that I would get paid, because I can only work with a certain amount of families, because only a certain amount of people would trust a black person being in their house all the time, if that makes sense. And yeah, so that has affected me in that way, but I am aspiring to be a teacher, so I just want to take that information and just grow from it and be the best teacher I can be to younger children.
Oh, that is so wonderful, and I applaud you. Let's give her a clap, because she wants to be that teacher, and we need more public school teachers and on the community college and university level. That is so awesome. Anybody else, by the way, thank you again, my dear. Anybody else want to go into education as a teacher, instructor, professor, principal, assistant principal, coach? There we go. I know I recreation lead athlete. Okay, coach, and we do appreciate that. As we're moving on today and closing up today, anyone else want to add to that topic of employment?
Well, employment.
Please.
I used to work at Bojangles in Charlotte, North Carolina. My boss, he used to like look at resumes and stuff, and if you had like a name that really just didn't fit, that he thought like a Trayshawn or Shaniqua or whatever, he would just brush it off, like, nope, not even gonna look at it. I thought that was pretty like interesting to me, like, wow, like you didn't even look at the resume, you just seen the name, was like, nope, that's pretty like stereotyping racially. I just feel as though that it's unfair that certain African American men and women that parents named them, they had no choice, you know. They got the name from their parents, they being racially profiled, you know, at jobs. I mean, I was like, wow, that's crazy. You know, people was trying to work hard, people was trying to try, you know, to get a job. Everybody should have a fair trial, get an interview, and then you can identify if they are worthy for your, you know, your job or whatever. I just think it's just hard for more African American males and females also to get jobs, because if you have a name that just doesn't fit the description, they're not gonna hire you, or they're not gonna even look at your resume. So it's just, I think it's pretty hard.
Boy, before you even could get in the door, the resume with the name, hadn't thought about that. That sounds like something on a comedy skit, you know, unfortunately, but that is reality. Anyone else want to add to that?
I feel it's getting better. Making a lot of progress. It's a lot of people that they're willing to take that chance, I guess you could say, on an African American working with them now. I work as a waiter at a steakhouse in Sanford, and it's a predominantly white business. I was the only black person there, and just the boss I had, Mike Davidson, he just took a chance. I came to the interview, talked to him, he felt confident, and now I'm one of the more talented waiters there. So I guess it's a lot more people that are more open-minded now, and they understand that besides all the stereotypes that there are and all the thoughts people have about African Americans, there's people out there that are just as good as they believe they are. So I feel that it is getting better.
Getting better.
Another thing I would say that we're getting better, that's improving, is how African Americans are more, well educated. You have people, a lot more black teachers these days, and people who are in these high positions, like Obama, he was the president, that are, these examples set way for many black kids of our generation, so that we know that we can continue to achieve our goals that we want to, and that we're not going to let anything stop us. So just having the positive mindset of knowing that we could choose any profession that we want and pursue that profession with all positivity, I guess you would say, just makes it more of a reality aspect for us, so that, when kids of the next generation that are black, they can see that what we did and continue on the journey.
Beautiful. Just a little FYI, before integration and these communities right here in Moore County and throughout the South and the North, you all go back and read about that. And for those who are viewing the program today, you can bring things up. You can Google it, YouTube it, go to your library, that there were more black-owned businesses prior to 50-something or the 60s. Right over where I grew up in Taylortown, North Carolina, the west side of Southern Pines, Berkeley, part of Aberdeen, throughout the South. Go read about it. There were doctors, there were many more teachers. You would have African Americans that had their own barbershop. You had everything in your neighborhood. You didn't have to go outside of it, because you couldn't really go to the white neighborhoods that readily. And if you did, if you went to some stores, you didn't go through the front door. Sometimes you go through I can remember that as a little girl. There were kind of little special rules for people of color going to certain stores right here in Moore County. And thank God for our, I'm just going to put it out there too, there were our Jewish brothers and sisters who were a little more liberal and open to people of color. You said colored people or Negroes coming into their stores and shopping, because there again, money's green. But just a little FYI to go and read about that. We had, as a black community, more ownership, our money. We were buying, selling one another, and then things started to crumble. Unfortunately, it didn't go the way we thought with integration and those things. And so, but we look for you all to take it to another level. As we're closing out today, I was going to touch on politics, politicians, and community relations, and I was really quick. What do the politicians need to do? We have governors, we have senators, we have congressmen, we have those on the state level, the municipal levels, county level, and of course, in our nation, in the capital. What do they need to do differently moving forward?
I don't know a lot about politics. I feel like, though, as a politician, that you're just gonna, as African American, you have to work harder. I mean, to get your foot in the door for it, to be a politician, that's probably really difficult. So if you're in any poll or anything running, you gotta work hard. You gotta persuade a lot of people for them to believe that you're the best fit, just with anybody. But I just feel like that job would be a lot more harder at being an African American.
And politicians across the board, whether they're white, black, red, brown, yellow, what can they do better to help with relations with our youth, our elderly, the shooting situation, guns, violence, and those types of things? It doesn't matter who the politician is or what their color or race is. What can they do to fix things moving forward?
One thing I would say is I feel like politicians today really just focus on one select few group of people that they want to be the voice for. I feel like certain politicians only want to make the rich rich. I mean, the rich richer and the poor poorer. It feels like certain people, certain groups of the black descent, we don't get acknowledged, and we're not being given the correct resources that we need to reach the goals that we want to. So I feel like, if you, as a politician, broaden out your group of people that you want to target and situations that you want to target that's going to make you a better politician and make this country regain its strength, because it seems like today we're losing a lot of that with all the craziness that's going on.
How about that? We need change is good. We need change. Let's hear from the young man right there. I got to get a few words from you. What's your first name again, dear?
Donnie.
Donnie.
Yes.
As we're closing out today, what are your thoughts overall on what we've talked about, race relations in America, past and present? And we're remembering Dr. King today as well, when he was assassinated.
Can you like
Narrow it down? Yes, I can. Voting, because Dr. King and others are getting the voting rights, and we stand in jeopardy of those things turning around, and then people being profiled in a way with that. Our youth still being profiled negatively, our youth of color, stop for every kind of thing, and some of us who are people of color are not in agreement with that. But what are your thoughts? How about that?
so like maybe with voting, like if you're like an African American trying to run for something, I feel like it's all about time and like through like what everything like what's going on at that point in time, like so with all the like with the cops and killing all the blacks and everything like that, and you could be like the voice of that, because we're like that's really big right now going on, so it's just like timing. So it's like if something else is going on like with like whites or something, you might not be at the top of the voting list because it's nothing like basically to do with you, but something like going on in the black community like really like crazy, you might be like get a whole bunch of votes because you're like the spokesperson of all the blacks like going through stuff.
All right. Are you all registered to vote? You don't. Yeah, you don't have to raise your. Everybody is. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Are you getting involved? It doesn't matter which party you're in. Are you getting out there to get people registered to vote? Are you involved with any organization? You don't have to name the organization. Are you thinking about getting involved just to get people registered to vote? Okay, and I do really appreciate that. And again, on this day, April 4th, 1968, good Lord, 50 years ago, here we sit now at Sand Hills Community College, remembering when Dr. King was going to see about those workers who needed help, and not knowing, but I think he did know that his time was coming to an end. And he said he'd already been where? To the mountaintop. Thank you so much for your time today, students here at Sand Hills Community College, and of course on the Town Talk TV show at Rose Highland-Sharpe. And we're going to take a glimpse of your wonderful professor, Professor Bill Pope. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
For having us, and we look forward to doing something like this on another occasion. Thank you so much and take care. Certainly hope you enjoyed the discussion with the wonderful students in the African American History class at Sand Hills Community College, Pinehurst, North Carolina. Let's remember to encourage one another, the widowed indeed, the orphaned, our veterans, the poor, with encouraging words and our good deeds and our good thoughts. I'm Rose Highland-Sharpe. If you're walking the walk, you'll be on Town Talk. Take care. Town Talk airs daily at 11 a.m. on WYBE TV, Spectrum Cable 3, Southern Pines, North Carolina, and on Rose Highland-Sharpe YouTube. It is a service to the community.